Professor Zixalan hurried through the crowded hallways of the Galactic University of Advanced Sciences, his 6 tentacle arms struggling to juggle an assortment of ancient artifacts, data crystals, and holoprojectors. The gelatinous students of the Morphic Collective oozed respectfully to either side as he passed, while the insectoid H-Keetrill clicked their mandibles in deference to his academic status. "Professor, your opinion on the Rigelian falsification claims?" called out a student, journalist, their recording eye stalks extending toward him. "Not now," Zixalan snapped, his epidermis flushing a dismissive orange. "After my lecture." A clumsy Gravtic student bumped into him, sending what appeared to be a yellowed tooth clattering across the polished quantum marble floor. "Careful, you mindless gas breather." Zixalan's skin rippled with irritation. "That alleged human molar is older than your entire homeworld." The student shrank back, tendrils quivering with apology, as Zixalan carefully recovered the artifact with a specialized gravity field. Tonight was too important for mishaps. After 37 galactic standard years of research, mockery, and academic isolation, vindication was finally within reach. The grand auditorium's doors parted as he approached. Inside, nearly 3,000 students and faculty from across the Confederated systems filled the terraced seating. Zixalan noted with satisfaction that even his most vocal critics had come. Professor Thalak of Comparative Xenobiology sat, front and center, her poisonous spines fully extended in skeptical display. Perfect. Let them all witness. Zixalan arranged his materials on the floating platform at the center of the auditorium. The Galactic News Network drone hovered nearby, its transmission light blinking. He was being broadcast to millions. "Distinguished colleagues, eager students, and honored guests," he began, his voice amplification field adjusting perfectly to the acoustics. "Tonight I conclude my series on mythical species of the universe, with the most persistent and pernicious myth of all, humans." The holographic display activated, projecting a 3-dimensional image of an alleged human skeleton. Murmurs rippled through the audience. For centuries, fringe archaeologists have insisted that these bipedal creatures once dominated a significant portion of the Orion spiral arm. They claim humans possessed exceptional adaptability and something called creative problem-solving. His upper eye stalks rolled in academic derision, drawing appreciative chuckles. "Notice the absurdly inefficient design," he continued, highlighting the skeleton with a gesture. "Balanced precariously on just 2 limbs, a spine that guarantees chronic pain, and most ridiculous," he zoomed in on the skull, a brain case, so small it could hardly contain sufficient neural matter for sentience, yet supposedly housed consciousness advanced enough for interstellar travel. More laughter followed. Even Professor Thalak's spines had relaxed slightly. "Through rigorous application of xenobiological principles, I will demonstrate how the human myth arose from misidentified Prothean artifacts, combined with the well-documented tendency of carbon-based intelligences to perceive bipedal patterns even where none exist." Zixalan activated another hologram, DNA sequences that spiraled above the audience. "Observe the supposed human genome. My analysis reveals impossible protein combinations that violate 6 fundamental laws of carbon-based biology. No such creature could exist." As Zixalan prepared to display his most damning evidence, a notification pulsed from the university's orbital monitoring system to his neural interface. A ship of unknown configuration had just dropped out of hyperspace. He dismissed the alert, without a second thought. After all, nothing could possibly be more important than his moment of academic triumph. Captain Maya Chen jerked awake, gulping in recycled air as her cryopod hissed open. Frost crystals crackled in her eyelashes and her muscles screamed in protest as she forced herself to sit upright. Red emergency lights pulsed throughout the ship, casting eerie shadows. "Status report," she croaked, throat raw from 83 years of artificial hibernation. The medical AI immediately administered a hydration spray to her parched lips. "Captain." Commander Alejandro Jackson appeared beside her pod, already mobile despite the muscle atrophy that followed long-term cryosleep. His dark eyes were wide with something Maya rarely saw there: awe. Medbay's reviving the others, but you need to see this now. He helped her to the viewport, supporting her weight as her legs remembered their purpose. Outside, against the Yoai, velvet backdrop of unfamiliar stars floated a structure so vast it defied comprehension. A massive spinning ring sectioned like a wheel, ablaze with lights and patterns too orderly to be natural. "Is that," she whispered, "a space station?" "Yes." Jackson's voice remained steady, but his grip on her arm tightened. "And it's teeming with life. Thousands of different biosignatures. We did it, Captain. First contact." The ship's AI chimed, in its tone carefully modulated for minimal stress. "Analysis complete. Structure appears to be an educational facility. Translation algorithms are processing multiple language inputs simultaneously." Lieutenant Sophie Park staggered into the bridge, still wearing her cryosuit, a neural interface headset already strapped to her temples. As the Pathfinder's communications specialist, her augmented synapses could process linguistic data faster than any computer. "Captain, you're not going to believe this." Park's fingers danced across a holographic interface. "I've established connection with their information network. It's like a university. The biggest university imaginable." "Are they hostile?" Maya asked, military training reasserting itself. "That's just it," Park said, frowning. "I sent standard first contact protocols and they responded with..." She hesitated. "Laughter. They think we're pranksters." "Explain." Maya's voice hardened. "According to their data archives, humans are mythological creatures," Park said, disbelief coloring her words. "Like unicorns or dragons back on Earth. They don't believe we exist." Jackson barked a laugh. "You're telling me we traveled 24 light years to meet aliens who think we're fairy tales?" Maya moved to the command console, her legs steadier, now as the revival meds kicked in. "Show me their network. I want to understand what we're dealing with." Park projected the alien data feed onto the main screen. Strange symbols flowed, automatically translating into English. Maya scanned through academic schedules, research papers, and campus announcements. One entry caught her eye. "Humans. Anatomy. Of a Galactic Myth by Professor Zixalan," she read aloud. "Grand auditorium starting in 30 minutes. A smile slowly spread across her face, the same expression her crew recognized from countless impossible missions. "Perfect timing." "Captain?" Jackson raised an eyebrow. "Prep the shuttle, Commander. Full diplomatic kit. And wake Dr. Rodriguez and Lieutenant Wei." Maya's eyes gleamed with determination. "If these aliens want to study mythology, I think it's time we gave them a lesson in reality." Park's neural interface pulsed. "Captain, I'm receiving a standard identification request from their orbital security. They're asking for our species designation." "Tell them," Maya said, straightening her uniform with military precision, "that we're just a myth coming home to roost." As the crew prepared for descent, none of them noticed the small black vessel detaching from the station's shadow, its sensors locked onto the Pathfinder with predatory focus. "And so you see," Professor Zixalan gestured triumphantly at the holographic display, his tentacles rippling with academic confidence, "the very genetic structure they claim belonged to humans contains impossible sequences. No carbon-based life form could possibly maintain stability with this arrangement of nucleotides." His primary eyes swept over the captivated audience, while his secondary visual organs monitored their physiological responses. The crowd was his. Even the notoriously skeptical crystalline collective had stopped their disruptive internal light patterns. "Consider the alleged human cardiovascular system," he continued, projecting a new hologram that elicited gasps of incredulity. "A single heart. Pumping iron-based blood through fragile vessels, preposterous. The system would fail under minimal gravitational stress." A ripple of amusement passed through the audience. In the third row, a young Vorsian scholar's notes blinked with excited observations. Zixalan was building to his masterstroke. But perhaps most damning is the human linguistic profile. According to myth, they communicated primarily through crude, air vibrations instead of proper telepathic or bioluminescent means. How could... The massive doors at the back of the auditorium hissed open with unexpected force. Every head turned. Gelatinous bodies sloshed in their containment suits. Exoskeletons creaked. Eye stalks swiveled upward. A collective gasp rippled through the room as 5 bipedal figures strode confidently down the center aisle. What ridiculous costumes! Zixalan attempted to laugh, but his voice wavered as his chromatophores betrayed him, flushing a sickly yellow. Security, please remove these pranksters. The figures approached under the harsh academic lighting. They wore matching dark uniforms with unfamiliar insignia. Their exposed skin ranged from pale to dark brown, their upper appendages swinging, in perfect counterbalance to their bipedal locomotion. The lead figure's black hair was pulled back tightly, accentuating facial features that precisely matched the fabricated reconstructions in Zixalan's own research. We're not wearing costumes. Professor, the leader announced, her voice crisp and carrying perfectly without amplification. The universal translators throughout the auditorium struggled momentarily before adapting to the unfamiliar speech pattern. She reached the stage and extended one of her upper appendages, a gesture no alien in the room recognized. Captain Maya, Chen, Earth Exploration Vessel. Pathfinder, I believe your lecture contains some inaccuracies. The auditorium erupted in chaos. A hive-mind student colony collapsed into unconsciousness, their synchronized nervous systems overloaded. A religious, quantum probability monk stood on their seat, tentacles raised skyward, shouting about prophecies fulfilled. The GNN drone swooped closer, its transmission indicators blinking frantically. In the front row, Professor Thlack's poisoned spines extended to full defensive posture. Zixalan backed away involuntarily, colliding with his display stand. Precious artifacts clattered to the floor, including the alleged human tooth, which looked eerily similar to the ones visible when Captain Chen smiled. Impossible, he whispered, all 6 eyes fixed on Maya's unmistakably human face. His entire career, his research, his certainty, all collapsing in real time. You can't exist. And yet, here we are. Maya picked up the fallen tooth, examining it with amusement. This is actually a molar, by the way, not a canine as your display indicated. She turned to face the stunned audience, her poise unshaken, despite being surrounded by thousands of aliens. My name is Captain Maya Chen of Earth. My crew and I have traveled 24 light years to establish first contact. We are very real, and we're delighted to meet you all. With perfect timing, she added, we'd be happy to answer questions after the professor concludes his fascinating analysis of our biological impossibility. From his collapsed position against the wall, Zixalan could only stare in scientific horror as every certainty in his universe crumbled before him. They're a sophisticated hoax, a biological construct designed to discredit me. Professor Zixalan's voice cracked as he paced frantically before the university chancellor's desk. His skin cycled through distress patterns, mottled purple giving way to sickly green streaks. Chancellor Vornax, a massive gelatinous entity contained within an ornate hovering shell, pulsed with skeptical luminescence. 12 separate biometric analyses confirm they are indeed a previously unknown species, Professor. The genetic material matches fragments in our archaeological database. Impossible. I've dedicated my life to disproving their existence. Zixalan's tendrils twisted in agitation. My research will require significant revision, the Chancellor finished, diplomatic biolight softening the blow. 3 floors below, in the hastily repurposed xenobiology laboratory, Maya and her crew underwent their 12th medical examination in 3 days. Breathe into this again, demanded a multi-limbed medical officer, shoving another crystalline device at Commander Jackson. Jackson rolled his eyes but complied. You've already analyzed our respiration, metabolism, neural patterns, and waste products. What exactly are you looking for now? The flaw in your construction, obviously, the alien muttered, their translator barely catching the subvocalization. Dr. Rodriguez, the Pathfinder's chief medical officer, observed with professional interest as a hovering scanner mapped her internal organs. Your technology is fascinating. On Earth, we'd consider these devices at least a century beyond our capabilities. The alien scientists exchanged glances, clearly unsettled by a mythological being casually discussing advanced technology. Meanwhile, Lieutenant Park had quietly separated from the group. With her neural enhancements, she'd quickly deciphered the laboratory's information system. While the aliens focused on their examinations, she had slipped into an adjacent research terminal. "Captain," she called urgently, eyes fixed on the display. "You need to see this." Maya excused herself from a fascinated xenobiologist who had been studying her hair follicles and joined Park at the terminal. On the screen, classified files showing unmistakable images of ancient human cities, followed by devastating orbital bombardment. The file header, now translated by Park's neural implant, read, "Species Removal Protocol 7A, Humanity Containment." "According to this," Park whispered, "we didn't vanish. Something called the Consortium tried to exterminate us. 10,000 years ago." Maya's face hardened. "Download everything you can." Outside the laboratory, the university had descended into glorious chaos. Classes were suspended as students staged demonstrations demanding access to the humans. Religious groups clashed in the central plaza, some declaring humans divine messengers, others proclaiming them harbingers of doom. The GNN feed had crashed from unprecedented viewership levels. Academic journals servers collapsed under the weight of hastily revised papers being submitted simultaneously. Tenured professors in xenobiology, evolutionary theory, and historical archaeology announced abrupt sabbaticals. Professor Zixalan, after his unsuccessful appeal to the chancellor, wandered into the main library atrium. Students who days earlier had respectfully sought his insights now averted their eye stalks in second-hand embarrassment. His academic communicator pulsed with notifications, speaking engagements canceled, research grants under review, and most painfully, a message from the prestigious Journal of Evolutionary Xenobiology requesting the retraction of his last 16 papers. Hours later, Maya found him slumped at a research terminal, surrounded by historical archives. His skin had faded to a dull gray of academic despair. "Professor?" she said, settling beside him. His tendrils recoiled slightly before he mastered himself. "Captain," he acknowledged stiffly, "come to witness my complete professional annihilation." "Actually," Maya said, sliding a data crystal toward him, "I came because we need your help. Lieutenant Park found something disturbing in your historical archives." She met his multiple eyes directly. "Professor, who exactly runs your galactic society?" His color drained to pale blue. No one's ever actually asked that question before. Far above the university, in geosynchronous orbit, a sleek black vessel received an encrypted transmission. The message was brief. "Containment Protocol 7A failed. Human presence confirmed. Awaiting extermination authorization." "That's impossible." Professor Zixalan's tentacles flailed in agitation as he reviewed the latest test results. He had commandeered a private research laboratory, converting it into an impromptu human study center. Holographic displays showed real-time biometric data from the human crew. "No sentient species can function on such minimal sleep." Maya stifled a yawn, downing her 5th cup of synthesized coffee. The liquid was a poor imitation of the real thing, but the university's molecular replicators had done their best based on her description. She'd been awake for 50 hours straight, helping coordinate research while her crew rotated rest shifts. "Yet here I stand," she said, gesturing to herself. "You should see what happens when you give us deadline pressure and energy drinks." Zixalan's primary eye stalks quivered with excitement despite himself. 3 days ago, his career had been obliterated. Now he found himself the reluctant pioneer of a new scientific field, actual human biology rather than myth debunking. "Your cellular regeneration rates exceed all known parameters," he muttered, examining tissue samples under a quantum microscope. "Your DNA should have degraded beyond repair during your 83-year journey." "We adapt," Maya shrugged. The professor's makeshift human research lab had become the university's hottest unauthorized attraction. Despite security measures, students from every department found excuses to pass by, hoping to glimpse the impossible beings who could consume capsaicin for pleasure. A horrified culinary sciences student whispered to her clustermates after witnessing Lieutenant Wei enjoying synthesized hot sauce, continue functioning after sustaining microfractures in their support structures, a medical student reported, referring to Commander Jackson's healed collarbone injury. Process multiple toxins simultaneously and consider it recreation, a biochemistry. Major added, having analyzed the molecular structure of whiskey that Dr. Rodriguez had described with suspicious fondness. Most disturbing to the xenopsychologists was the human emotional range. States existed for which there were no translation in Galactic Standard. The term nostalgia had crashed 3 linguistic databases. Your thermal regulation should have failed when exposed to cryogenic temperatures, Zixalan noted, highlighting a cellular scan. Yet your tissue shows minimal damage. Maya watched him work, seeing genuine scientific curiosity replacing his former academic arrogance. Professor, have you considered that the consortium might have had reasons beyond simple xenophobia for removing humans from galactic history? Before he could answer, his research assistant, a young Vortian named Laxley, whose multifaceted eyes missed nothing, burst through the laboratory doors trembling with excitement. Professor, I found it. Laxley's crystalline exoskeleton refracted light in patterns indicating extreme agitation. A sealed record from the purge. I had to bypass 7 security protocols, but— You did what? Zixalan interrupted, suddenly aware of potential surveillance. It doesn't matter, Laxley continued breathlessly. What matters is what I found. Humans weren't just erased physically. The consortium specifically targeted all records of human creativity. Art, music, literature, stories. Stories? Maya asked, setting down her coffee. Your species' most dangerous weapon, apparently. Laxley's voice dropped to a reverent whisper. The file contained a consortium security directive classifying human fiction as, and I quote, a Class 1 memetic hazard capable of irreversible ideological contamination. Zixalan's chromatophores pulsed with realization. It wasn't your technology, they feared. No, Maya said slowly. It was our imagination. In the corridor outside, a maintenance drone paused its cleaning routine. Its optical sensors focused briefly on the laboratory door before resuming its duties. Inside its innocuous shell, a sophisticated surveillance package transmitted everything. It had recorded to a consortium receiver in high orbit. We shouldn't be here, Professor Zixalan whispered, his pigmentation paling to nearly white as he used his faculty credentials to override the security on the restricted archive's doorway. His tentacles trembled as they manipulated the ancient authentication interface. This section requires consortium clearance. The corridor stretched before them, illuminated only by bioluminescent strips that pulsed with warning patterns. Maya, Commander Jackson, and Lieutenant Park stood close behind, their faces ghostly in the eerie light. You can wait outside, Maya offered, checking the makeshift stunner she'd fashioned from university lab equipment. The weapon looked like a jury-rigged mess of components, but Park's engineering modifications had made it dangerously effective. And miss the greatest discovery in my field? Zixalan's chromatophores flashed with unexpected determination. Not a chance. Even he seemed surprised by his newfound courage. The massive door dissolved into particles, revealing a vast chamber beyond. The restricted archives were a labyrinth of data, crystal columns stretching for kilometers in every direction, each crystal containing thousands of years of censored knowledge. The central index should be there, Zixalan pointed with a trembling appendage toward a crystalline console that pulsed with deep blue light. Lieutenant Park approached the console, connecting her neural interface. She winced as alien data protocols assaulted her augmented synapses. Different architecture than I've seen before, but workable. Her fingers danced across the interface as her implants adapted to the alien system. I'm in. The chamber around them came alive with holographic displays, ancient data flooding the air with images and text. They gasped collectively as they witnessed the truth. Earth hadn't been a minor homeworld. Humans had led a coalition of species against consortium exploitation centuries before their supposed discovery. Holographic records showed human diplomats standing alongside dozens of alien species now forgotten from official history. They weren't just erasing a species, Commander Jackson breathed, watching footage of human art galleries on distant worlds, musical performances for multi-species audiences, and linguistic databases showing how human languages had influenced galactic dialects. They were erasing an idea. The most damning evidence came in consortium internal memos, clinically discussing humanity's dangerous idealism, contagious hope, and mimetic creativity as existential threats to galactic stability. One consortium. Leader's message floated before them, translated in real time. Humans make others believe the impossible is possible. There is no more dangerous concept in the galaxy. Maya's eyes narrowed as she read the files. We weren't a military threat. We were an ideological one. Zixalan's tentacles curled thoughtfully. The consortium maintains control through cultural homogeneity and rigid hierarchy. Your species introduced unpredictability. Captain, Park called from a separate data node. I found Earth's coordinates. She projected a star map into the center of the chamber. According to this, Earth wasn't destroyed as consortium records claim. The final crystal revealed Earth's location, shrouded behind a massive cloaking field, quarantined for millennia. The consortium had imprisoned an entire planet rather than risk humanity's return. We need to get this information back to the Pathfinder, Maya said. If Earth still exists. Suddenly, alarms blared throughout the facility. Red warning lights, bathing the chamber. On security monitors near the entrance, they saw black uniformed figures entering the university's main concourse. Consortium agents, Zixalan whispered, his color draining completely. They know you're here. How quickly can we get back to our ship? Maya asked, already calculating escape routes. Too late, Park said, pointing to another monitor showing the university's docking bay. The Pathfinder's shuttle was surrounded by armed agents. Then we fight, Commander Jackson said grimly. Zixalan, who had been trembling with fear moments earlier, straightened his posture. I know another way, he said with unexpected resolve. But you'll have to trust me. Maya studied the alien professor. Once, her species' greatest skeptic, now potentially their only ally. Lead the way, Professor. Attention university residents. Remain in your quarters for mandatory identification verification. This is not a drill. The sterile announcement echoed through empty hallways as Maya, her crew, and Professor Zixalan hurriedly barricaded themselves. In the xenobiology laboratory. Outside, consortium agents in sleek black exoskeletons methodically swept building by building, their helmet sensors capable of detecting specific genetic signatures. They'll kill you all, Zixalan moaned, cowering behind a desk, his skin cycling through patterns of terror. Me too for helping you. The consortium doesn't permit witnesses. Not if we stop them first, Maya said, her mind racing through tactical options. The lab's reinforced doors would hold temporarily, but not against focused energy weapons. Professor, what's the most powerful equipment in this lab? What followed became instant university legend. Humans transforming academic equipment into improvised weaponry with terrifying efficiency. Commander Jackson converted high-energy microscopes into blinding flashbang devices. Dr. Rodriguez reprogrammed medical nanites to target the neural interfaces in consortium armor. Lieutenant Park rewired the lab's quantum field generators to create localized gravity distortions. Is this how humans always respond to threats? Zixalan asked in horrified fascination, watching Maya convert a centrifuge into a projectile launcher. Adaptation is our specialty, she replied without looking up. We've been improvising our way out of extinction for our entire evolutionary history. The laboratory's external sensors showed consortium forces converging on their position. 6 agents, then 12, then 20. They're sending a full tactical team against 4 humans and 1 academic? Jackson asked incredulously. They remember what we're capable of, Maya said grimly. When the agents breached the outer door, they found themselves navigating a deadly obstacle course of human ingenuity. The first wave stumbled into gravity distortion fields, their movements slowed to a crawl. The second team was temporarily blinded by reconfigured research lasers. The third group found the floor beneath them suddenly frictionless as the humans had repurposed surface tension modifiers from a chemistry station. One by one, they were disabled, trapped, or driven back. The turning point came when Lieutenant Park took a stun blast meant for Zixalan. The alien professor, previously frozen in terror, watched as the human collapsed, protecting him, a mythological being sacrificing herself for a skeptic who had spent his career denying her existence. Something awakened in the professor, a spark of the same defiance that defined humanity. He crawled to a neural interface device and rapidly reprogrammed it with trembling tentacles. When the consortium commander finally cornered Maya behind an overturned quantum spectrometer, he activated his helmet's external speaker. "Captain Chen," the modulated voice announced, "I am Enforcement Primarch Vex 972. The consortium offers amnesty to this university and all its inhabitants if you surrender now. Resistance is—" The wall behind him erupted in a cascade of sensory distortion as Zixalan activated his jury-rigged psionic amplifier. The commander's neural implants overloaded instantly, bombarding him with contradictory sensory inputs. His limbs spasmed as his armor locked into emergency shutdown. "I believe," Zixalan announced, standing over the incapacitated commander, his voice surprisingly steady. "This concludes today's demonstration on why erasing humans from history was the consortium's greatest miscalculation." Maya stared at the professor in newfound respect. "That was applied xenobiology," he said with what approximated a smile in his species. "I finally understand what your files meant by creative problem-solving." Outside, more consortium ships descended toward the university. Time was running out. "We've got their commander," Maya said, retrieving a data crystal from the fallen Primarch's armor, "and his security clearances. Now we need a platform to broadcast what we've learned." "The quantum communications array," Zixalan suggested. "It can reach every corner of Confederated space simultaneously." Maya helped the still-dazed Lieutenant Park to her feet. "Then that's our next target." As they prepared to move, the professor asked quietly, "Is this how all human stories go? Impossible odds, desperate plans, unlikely victories?" "Pretty much," Maya replied with a grim smile. "We call it Tuesday. Not a hoax or myth, but flesh and blood like many of you." Maya's voice rang through the university's quantum broadcast array, reaching every corner of Confederated space simultaneously. Behind her, the captured consortium agents stood bound, and guarded by Commander Jackson and Dr. Rodriguez, their sleek black armor now powered down and harmless. The university's central communications hub had been hastily converted into an impromptu broadcast studio. Lieutenant Park, still recovering from her injury, managed the transmission systems with Professor Zixalan's assistance. The professor had surprised everyone, perhaps himself most of all, with his newfound determination. "For 10,000 years, Maya continued, her face displayed on billions of screens across thousands of worlds. "You've lived under the shadow of the consortium, never questioning who truly rules you. Today, that changes." She nodded to Park, who began transmitting the data they'd recovered. The attempted genocide of humanity, the systematic oppression of other species, the historical revisionism that had erased not just humans, but dozens of other cultures that had allied with them. The consortium feared human creativity, our stories, our art, our ability to imagine different futures. But most of all, they feared what we inspired in others. University students from 100 worlds, realizing the historic importance of what was happening, relayed her transmission through personal networks bypassing consortium sensors. The feed included undeniable evidence from the archives. Footage of the Earth's imprisonment behind cloaking technology, internal consortium directives classifying human cultural artifacts as ideological contaminants, and most damning of all, the consortium leadership's own words about the danger of allowing species to develop independently. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Reports flooded in through the communication hub's receivers. Protests erupting on core worlds. Questions raised in governing assemblies. Military vessels declaring independence from consortium control. A handful of ancient species stepping forward, with memories of human allies from millennia past, publicly pledging support. They're trying to shut down the broadcast, Park warned, fingers flying across the controls as she countered consortium interference attempts. Just a little longer, Maya urged. Within days, representatives from dozens of worlds arrived at the university, first in secret, then openly as consortium control fractured across the galaxy. The powerful organization that had manipulated galactic politics for millennia found itself suddenly exposed and vulnerable in the face of united opposition. In the grand auditorium, the same room where Professor Zixalan had once mocked humans as impossible myths, Maya addressed the first meeting of what would become the new coalition. "We don't come as conquerors or saviors," she told the assembled delegates from across the galaxy. "We come as equals and friends. The consortium feared us not for our weapons but for our greatest power, the ability to imagine a better tomorrow and inspire others to build it with us." She gestured to Professor Zixalan, now standing proudly at her side. His chromatophores displayed patterns of dignity and purpose that his colleagues had never seen before. "Together, we rewrite the story they tried to erase. Not just humanity's story, but the story of a galaxy where different species choose cooperation over control." Representatives rose in thunderous applause, a cacophony of sounds as diverse as the beings making them. Tentacles waved, crystalline structures vibrated, bioluminescent patterns pulsed with approval. As the ovation continued, Zixalan leaned toward Maya. "I've spent my career studying myths," he said, voice thick with emotion. "I never imagined I'd help create a new one," she smiled. "It's only a myth until it happens, Professor. That's the thing about humans. We make impossible things real." Above them, through the auditorium's transparent dome, they could see consortium ships withdrawing from orbit as allied vessels took their place. And beyond them, barely visible as a faint disruption against the stars, the first exploration vessel was already preparing to journey to the coordinates where Earth waited, hidden, but never truly lost. The story of humanity was about to begin its next chapter. One academic cycle later, Professor Zixalan strode confidently into his packed lecture hall, no longer stumbling under the weight of artifacts and insecurity. The grand auditorium, once the site of his greatest humiliation, was now the most prestigious classroom in the university. Students from across the galaxy competed fiercely for limited seats in his course, with some traveling from systems that had only recently joined the new coalition. "Welcome to Human Philosophy and Galactic Revolution, Year 1, he announced. To the diverse crowd, his skin displaying the rich blue patterns of academic confidence, but tempered now with humility his former self would never have recognized. "Today we have a special guest lecturer." Captain Maya Chen entered to thunderous applause. Though now a galactic celebrity and recently appointed human ambassador to the coalition, she still wore her Pathfinder uniform. She carried a small object, draped in ceremonial cloth. "Before we begin," she said, "the professor and I would like to unveil something." Together they removed the cloth, revealing an ancient Earth artifact preserved in a crystal stasis field. A simple book, open to its title page, "To Kill a Mockingbird." "The consortium spent millennia trying to erase human stories," Maya explained as students eagerly scanned the book into their translators. "This was the first one recovered from Earth after the cloaking field was dismantled last month. It's about justice, courage, and seeing the world through others' eyes. Everything the consortium feared humans would teach you." A Vorsian student's crystalline structure vibrated with emotion. "Is it true that Earth has been fully reconnected to galactic society?" she asked. "The process has begun," Maya confirmed. "After 10,000 years of isolation, it will take time. But the first cultural exchange delegations have already arrived." Professor Zixalan activated the wall behind him, where a quote appeared in both human and galactic script. "Never underestimate a species whose greatest evolutionary advantage is their capacity for hope." "This," the professor said proudly, is the title of my forthcoming book and the foundation of our new galactic society. His eye stalk swept over the auditorium, once the scene of his greatest embarrassment, now the birthplace of a revolutionary understanding. Class dismissed. We have better stories to write together. As the students filed out, Maya and Zixalan stood by the window overlooking the university grounds, where humans and aliens mingled freely. Did you ever imagine, Maya asked, when you were preparing your lecture debunking our existence, that it would end like this? Never, the professor admitted, his chromatophores displaying amusement. In science, being proven wrong is usually considered a failure. But I've never been so grateful to be so spectacularly incorrect. In the sky above, ships from 100 worlds streaked through the atmosphere, a galaxy awakening to possibilities that had been suppressed for millennia. To think, Zixalan mused, the consortium feared your stories more than your weapons. Maya smiled. That's the thing about stories, Professor. The good ones never really die. They just wait to be rediscovered.